Welcome to this Monday edition of Wiltfong Whiparound. I'm Grace Remington with our 24/7 Sports Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong, who is back from his trip to the Battle Miami 7-on-7 tournament. We will touch on that later on in the show, but let's start with the Gamecocks because Shane Beamer is rolling, overachieving on the field. He got the big payday in the extension, and now he's landing a commitment from one of the top offensive tackles in the country. Steve, what can you tell us about Kam Pringle?
Well, I think Shane Beamer and that coaching staff in Columbia have more ambition than the 8 wins that they had this past season with the way that this program is recruiting. And look, when they got to South Carolina, it was a 2-win football team. They win 7 games in year 1. They win 8 games this year. And now they're bringing in the nation's number 16 recruiting class in 2023. That's as high as they've been ranked in 24/7 sports history. They still have 5-star athlete Nicholas Harbor on the board as well. Shane Beamer expected to go in home with Harbor this week, but they're starting to pick up some major steam in 2024. As you said, they had 4-star quarterback Dante Reno committed. Top 247 offensive lineman Kam Pringle joins the fold. He's the number 1 ranked offensive tackle in the country per the 24/7 sports composite. He's a two-way guy on the prep level. I think he shows twitch, got good size, good frame, good feet. He can move. I like the way he fires off the ball, and you see he can run. Offensive line's been a major point of emphasis for this South Carolina staff on the recruiting trail. They had a really strong class at the point of attack in 2023 with Marquis Anderson, Tree Barbalade, and Trayvon Baugh. I think those are guys that will all have an opportunity to come in and provide some depth to a very veteran offensive line that's going to have a lot of turnover after this next season. And offensive line remains a priority in 2024, Grace. Kam Pringle was a big pickup for them, and they're in really good position for 2 more coveted guys at the position, none more so than Josiah Thompson, who I've had some college coaches tell me is the best offensive line prospect in America. South Carolina's at the very least near the top of his list, if not sitting at number 1 overall. And then you have Blake Franks from Greenville High there in state. Clemson's the 24/7 sports crystal ball favorite there, but talking to a source this morning about Blake, they think South Carolina is also in really good position for him. So if they can ultimately add Josiah Thompson and Blake Franks to Kam Pringle, South Carolina is now looking at one of the best offensive line classes in the country. They're also trending for a few other prospects, Grace. You got tight end Michael Smith out of the Peach State, going to announce his college decision this week. I like where South Carolina stands there with Arkansas being the competition. 4-star lacker Wendell Gregory, also from the state of Georgia, committing later this week. He could certainly end up at South Carolina. And then one of the prospects that I saw this weekend in Miami at the Battle event was 4-star receiver Amazio Bennett, who is one of the more prolific prospects receiving targets in the region. The touchdown waiting to happen, as I like to say about some of these guys. Talking to him, his relationship is by far the best with South Carolina. He's at one time a verbal to Tennessee, but reopened the process in December. Visited Alabama earlier this month, had an awesome visit there, enjoyed his time with Nick Saban. He's going to Florida State this coming weekend, but I still get the sense that South Carolina is the tone setter in that recruitment. They're in fantastic position, and if they can start landing some of these guys, they sit at number 19 right now in our standings very early in the cycle, but I could see them in the top 10 rather early on, and then we'll see what that momentum could do for South Carolina moving forward. But they certainly have a lot of momentum on the field, Grace. 7 wins to 8 wins, massive improvements under this new staff. But this is just the beginning for them as far as they're concerned. Number 16 ranked recruiting class in 2023. We'll see if they can go higher in 2024. A lot of big names out there.
Another note I think Gamecock fans will appreciate. You mentioned, Steve, they jumped into the top 20 at number 19 with the commitment from Kam Pringle. That is 1 spot above Clemson in the rankings. All right, let's do some crystal balls. Justin Scott will be announcing his decision on January 31st. That's his 17th birthday. He's been trending toward Notre Dame. So, Steve, how confident are you that he sticks with the Irish?
Yeah, well, while I was on the field in South Florida, soaking up great weather, 80 degrees, sun. Tom Loy grinding, our Notre Dame insider, grinding in the Hoosier State, 30 degrees and dreary weather. But warming up Notre Dame fans with his information on Justin Scott. First reporting Justin Scott was going to visit this past weekend, but now that visit's been pushed this weekend, which is good news for Irish fans because there was some talk that Georgia was maybe going to get him on campus this weekend. Notre Dame, talked to a source this morning myself. It appears that they have much of the momentum in this recruitment going into the decision. Now, I also traded some information with our Midwest analyst, Alan True, national recruiting analyst who's close to that situation, that said that he thought a visit to USC at the end of the fall was also a big needle mover. But it sounds like Notre Dame, proximity to home, Marcus Freeman and that staff, the trajectory of that program, are all things that have Notre Dame in really good position. And it looks like they're going to get the last visit going into his announcement here at the end of the month. So I like Notre Dame there. Notre Dame's had 3 straight top 10 recruiting classes, working on another. No bigger fish on the board for the Irish in the 2024 cycle than Justin Scott.
All right, Miami looking to add a second commit to its 2024 class, and you just crystal balled a 5-star wide receiver / athlete to Mario Cristobal. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, JoJo Trader from South Florida, Chaminade Madonna Prep. I don't know if he's on commit watch or anything, but just spending time with him in South Florida at the battle event, watching him play, interviewing him after, then talking to various sources with knowledge of the recruitment. I logged a crystal ball for Miami. I like the position that Mario Cristobal and company are in, and talking to him, he said it feels like home there. It's the program he's most familiar with, knows the most about. Obviously, he's got great proximity to it, but likes where things are headed under that coaching staff, and thinks he could be a big impact player in helping rebuild Miami and returning it to prominence. Now, with that being said, don't sleep on Ohio State. For Mr. Trader here. There's no question he's also extremely high on Ohio State, has built a great relationship with Brian Hartline and company, knows the track record. Ohio State is developing receivers, and even though my prediction's on Miami, if he turned around and committed to Ohio State, that certainly wouldn't be surprising to me as well. Florida State, and Tennessee round out the top 5 for him, but Miami is the program that he appears to be most comfortable with right now, and we'll see what happens moving forward.
All right. Well, we know you spent the weekend in South Beach. You're already making us jealous with all that beautiful sunny weather talk. But let's talk a little bit more about the Battle Miami 7-on-7 tournament. What did you like from the recruits there, and what are you hearing about where they could be headed to school?
Well, a lot of coverage on the 24/7 Sports website. Andrew Ivins just dropped the top performers from the event. Alpha Dog, #1 ranked receiver in the country, headed to Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith. So you'll want to check out the coverage on the 24/7 Sports website. But just some recruiting nuggets from the 5-stars that I had a chance to connect with. KJ Bolden, #1 ranked safety, #2 player overall in the top 247. He's going to visit Clemson this weekend, as I've said on the past few whip-arounds and 24/7 Sports recruiting shows. I like where Georgia stands for KJ Bolden. I think Ohio State is in the thick of that one as well. But Clemson is a program he's been several times, going back for what's going to be a massive junior day there. And they're certainly in the thick of that. Ellis Robinson, the #1 ranked corner back in the country. I think he's closing in on a college decision. Love where Georgia stands, as all y'all know. Nothing has changed there based on my conversations with him over the weekend. Feel really, really good about the Bulldogs' chances for Ellis Robinson as they look to add him to the nation's #1 ranked recruiting class. Alabama has the #1 ranked class in 2023, looking for another strong class in 2024. Their quarterback commit is Julian Sayin out of California. He was in town playing for the Raw team. Got a chance to talk to him a little bit because you got Miami trying to get the spatula out on Julian Sayin. You got Ohio State trying to get the spatula out on Julian Sayin. But Julian Sayin is saying all the right things about his verbal to Alabama right now, that he wants to play for Nick Saban and loves the way that they develop guys like Bryce Young there. But he said you never know what's going to happen in college football. He maintains relationships with coaches that he's had for a long time. And Ohio State and Miami are definitely 2 programs that have kind of emerged as ones that are trying to turn Julian Sayin away from Alabama and get him in the fold. Charles Lester III is a cornerback prospect that we've kind of talked a lot about recently on several of our shows here, but got a chance to watch him play this week and talk to him afterwards. And although I do think that Florida State has some momentum in him after getting him on campus again this 2 weekends ago, for what was another terrific visit. And he loves Mike Norvell. Talked about how Mike Norvell just pours into the players at the program, and that has turned them into a winner on the cusp of getting back to national prominence. But he's been to Alabama 5 times. He's been to Georgia several times. He's going to go to Clemson for the first time this weekend. Ohio State's in there. Florida's in there. So he has not closed the door on anybody right now. And although I do think that Florida State is well positioned, this is a recruiting battle that could certainly still have some twists and turns as he takes these visits, and he's so high on all these programs. Quentin Martin's the last 2024 that I'm going to talk about, 2024 that I'm going to talk about before pivoting to 2025. But out of the state of Pennsylvania, number 1 ranked player in the state out of Belle Vernon. He's going to be back at Penn State this coming weekend. And I get the sense that Penn State is in very good position for Quentin Martin. He's loved his game day visits there, has great relationships with several staff members, including Terry Smith and James Franklin. But I felt like his eyes lit up when he started talking about Ohio State after Penn State. And he really has enjoyed his time being around Ryan Day and loves the pageantry around the Buckeyes program, and certainly loves the level that Ohio State competes at year in and year out. Michigan's a program that's in really good position for Quentin Martin. Florida State's a program that he's intrigued by. Tennessee, he mentioned, but he's open to so many programs, and his recruitment may still just be taken off, but those Big Ten programs I mentioned are certainly ones that have caught his eye. A couple 2025s real quick, Grace. You have the number 1 ranked quarterback in the country, Bryce Underwood out of Belleville High in the state of Michigan, state champ, 2-time state champ now. He's going to take his first ever visit to Penn State this weekend. Michigan, he's been to several games there. He's high on Michigan. Had a great visit to Ohio State in December that moved the needle for him. He saw how Ohio State's developed C.J. Stroud. He sees a lot of himself similarities with his game and C.J. Stroud, so that makes Ohio State enticing. Michigan State's a program he's been visiting for years and has good relationships with Mel Tucker and Jay Johnson, called Mel Tucker a player's coach. But a school that I'm keeping a close eye on for Bryce Underwood, Grace, he's going to visit LSU the first weekend of March, and talking to Bryce Underwood for years now, talking to his dad, talking to his old high school coach, Jermaine Crowell. LSU is a program that's been mentioned for a long time. Quarterbacks coach Joe Sloan went up to Detroit to see Bryce Underwood and show how interested LSU is in Bryce. Bryce is equally interested. He's going to go down there the first weekend of March, and I think LSU is going to be a team to really watch in that recruitment moving forward. I think Joe Sloan, conversations that they've had with him, has really impressed, and certainly what Brian Kelly's done as a coach and just what LSU's done as a program. All that's exciting. And then you have receiver DeCorian Moore. He's the number 1 ranked receiver in the country, helped Duncanville win a state championship as a sophomore. Asked him about some of the schools standing out to him. Alabama was the program that he mentioned as one that has really caught his eye. Nick Saban was just out there recently to see him and several of his teammates, which includes electric pass rusher Colin Simmons. But he's also going to visit Oregon this weekend. Oregon's in the middle of that one. You got the in-state programs in there for DeCorian, but man, he was an exciting pass catcher as well. Saw so many great players in Miami. A lot of coverage across the 24/7 Sports Network on various team sites and on our national page. So you want to check that out for more.
All right, well, let's wrap with Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher just held a big recruiting weekend in College Station. His 2024 class currently ranking 15th with 3 commits. So, Steve, who might he be adding to that class after this weekend?
Yeah, several key targets were there in College Station. Let's start with top 247 quarterback Aaron Nolan, who's been a riser for us. Threw for over 4,000 yards and 55 touchdowns as a junior, the 6A state player of the year there in the Peach State for Fairburn Lakeston, state champion. Spent a lot of quality time with Coach Fisher, Coach Petrino, and there's no question he's high on Texas A&M. Was also there at the end of the season. Thinks that the people are there. Thinks the coaches are fantastic. Loves the mindset in College Station. I think he sees it as a place he can come in and compete at and compete at the highest level. But he's going to visit Alabama this weekend, and Miami, several other programs in the mix for him. But Texas A&M definitely moving the needle for Air Nolan. 5-star receiver Ryan Wingo was on campus again. Texas A&M's been one of the more prominent programs in his recruitment, alongside the likes of Tennessee, Oregon. He's going to visit Colorado this weekend. You got Notre Dame in there, Penn State, Missouri, of course, among others. But Ryan Wingo spent a lot of time with Air Nolan, spent a lot of time with Texas A&M receiver commit DeBron Gatling. They continue to have a really good rapport with Jimbo Fisher and the coaching staff. I think the thing that stood out to me most about the weekend, Grace, was just how every recruit that was there talked about Jimbo Fisher and the amount of time they got with him. So he put a lot of personal touch on Texas A&M's big recruiting weekend that included 4-star offensive lineman Casey Poe, who I think A&M's well positioned for. They're trying to flip a couple guys from LSU in Xavier Adkins and Maurice Williams, who both had phenomenal return trips to campus. TJ Lindsey's a 4-star defensive lineman from Arkansas, where there was maybe some Notre Dame buzz early in the month, but no question he's high on SEC schools like Texas A&M, LSU. Tylen Singleton, Tyanthony Smith, Makai Sena are guys that also had really good visits. The number 1 tight end in 2025, Devon Mitchell, also said it was a great experience. So Texas A&M, one thing that's for sure about them, Grace, is we know they're going to be in the middle of it for a lot of the top recruits in the country. They're going to continue to recruit high caliber recruiting classes. They've been top 10 every year under Jimbo Fisher, with the exception of this past year where they were top 10 in ranking per commit. It was just a average ranking per commit. It was just a smaller class. So it's time for them to start ripping and roaring on Saturday. It's been time. Bobby Petrino's there now. I expect that offense to have a 180-degree turnaround with him at the controls, and he'll have some good players to play with, and it looks like they'll have some potentially some more really good ones down the road.
And Air Nolan's got to be the coolest quarterback name of all time, like at any level, maybe an all-time sports name.
It is a great nickname. Hell, he's got a really good first name as it is, Prentice. I mean, that's a very dignified name itself, Prentice Air Nolan. Like, I would just go with all three. I wouldn't even just be Air. I wouldn't just be Prentice. It's just a Prentice Air Nolan here to play quarterback for you.
So sophisticated. Wow. All right. Well, thank you, Steve. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Remember, by the next episode, to send in your mailbag questions, and Steve is going to answer them for you on that next edition of Wiltfong Whiparound. And you can send them to us on Twitter at 247sports. We will be back here on Friday. Until then, have a great week.